Hi everyone, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Sonia's News. Before I get started, I want to give a thanks to all the new subscribers to my channel. I really appreciate you guys coming on to listen to me talk and rant at times. So tonight I wanted to get into NASA. So it's been about 2 months since we had the hearings, the UAP hearings, and then you had and then there was all the talk and whatever around it. And then a couple of weeks after that, maybe like a month ago, NASA decided they were going to come out and form their own UAP task force. And I was thinking to myself, what the? I'm like, really? Is this a freaking joke? NASA has never been a friend of the idea of UAPs or UFOs coming here to visit us. You've had astronauts who've come out and tried to talk about this stuff. NASA just shut them down. You had the video footage of the STS-48 mission where you clearly see a craft of some type coming into the atmosphere of Earth. And then some kind of light flashes and you see this ray come up, and then the object shoots off and goes back out to space. And of course NASA feeds us this whole line that it's an ice crystal. And then you had another mission, I would think it was STS-114. I could be wrong, but I think that's the mission where you see this, and the footage is kind of grainy, where you see this object comes in, and it's like a ball of, it's like a ball of light, or it was like an oval type light, and it comes into frame and it goes back out of frame and it curves around and it goes back out. Well, yes, of course, but these are all supposed to be ice crystals that NASA feeds us, and they just keep feeding us these lies and tell us this is an ice crystal. And then, not to mention, what some of you guys probably already know her, it's Donna Hare. I believe back in the 80s, she worked for Philco Ford, which was a private contractor, and that private contractor worked for NASA. So she was at NASA one day, and I guess a friend of hers who worked in the photo lab, because I think she was she worked on photos too, and analyzing photos and images and all that kind of stuff. So the guy that she was working with that day told her to come in because he wanted to show her something. And I guess the way images work by then, it was the satellite catches the images and then they get downloaded, I guess, to a computer. But they come out like a mosaic. So you have to put the pieces together to form a larger image. So she went over to look at what he wanted to show her, and he pointed something out. She was like, what is that? And she says something to the effect is that an emotion on the, I don't know if she said mosaic, but the emotion on the image. And he was like, no. And she said he was smiling the whole time while he was telling her this. And she asked, what is that? He told her. I mean, it was a UFO, it was a UAP. And she was just shocked. And she was like, well, what do you do with these images? And he was like, we always airbrush them out before we release them to the public. And I kind of figure that's what NASA does, because they're never going to they have all these cameras up in space. Of course there's not going to show us anything, but for the fact for him to tell her that, NASA blatantly airbrushes these objects out. So they know something is coming here. They know these crafts or objects coming here. They may not know where they're coming from, but they know they're coming here. So for them to come out and say that they're going to have this whole UAP independent study group that's going to be studying these things, they already know these things are coming here. They've caught them on their cameras. They've changed, like when they used to have the live feeds, you could listen to the people at the command center talking to the astronauts. And when there was one, I can't remember what mission it was, when one astronaut was like something to the effect that Santa Claus is here. And I guess Santa Claus is a reference for a UFO being out there in space. And then they would always cut the channel. They would cut the channel so you couldn't hear them, and they would go to a private channel. And they've done it a couple of times where you couldn't hear when the astronaut would mention something. And then NASA didn't want you to hear, so they would change to a private feed so you couldn't hear. So they know something is here. And so for them to come out and completely bush us with this story about how they're going to study UFOs, it's a complete joke. A complete joke. But I guess they gotta follow suit and follow the lead of their masters. So, maybe the Department of Defense or whatever, somebody they were gonna study UFOs, and it would look weird, I guess, if NASA didn't come out and follow suit and like, oh, we're gonna study UFOs. What kills me though is not supposed to be a company. They're supposed to be the company that's supposed to go out there and study life. I mean, that's their whole purpose. Going out to space, working into space. They're talking about colonizing Mars and other planets. They're supposed to be discovering life. But when something's coming here, and clearly something's coming here because it's been coming here for decades, from the 40s or whatever, they turn around and pretend like it doesn't exist, that there's nothing to it. How does that make any sense? Just what's the purpose of you if you're not gonna if you're gonna go out there and discover life and turn around and lie to the public and say nothing? That makes no money. It makes no sense. You're wasting our tax dollars. You're just as bad as the people who've been covering us up for 75 plus years. So now I'm pretty sure the people who've probably been covering this up for 75 plus years, whether it's a global elite or it's a group of faction that's within the United States, and they completely monopolize or run everything. They're taking their marching orders for them, because I'm pretty sure there's no doubt that NASA's taking their marching orders for them. So it would look weird if NASA didn't come out and say they were going to study these things. But it's really, really sad, because I remember when my mom used to take us to Kennedy Space Center. I think she took us there twice when I was younger. And you used to think that this is so cool. NASA's going to be the one that's going to go out and discover life, and they're going to share it with us, and they're going to go to Mars, and they're going to discover all these life forms, whether it's like micro life forms or something major, humanoid form. They're going to be the one that's going to share it with us. They're for the people. But no, they're not for the people. They're not for us. They are complacent in the lie. Just like the UAP task force, who's supposed to be studying the same things. They follow suit just like everybody else who goes along with the lie to manipulate us and keep us in the dark and not tell us the truth that some beings or something is coming here. What they're coming here for, I don't know, but they are coming here. They've been coming here since the 40s. You had the Battle of Los Angeles that happened in 1942, where the Army spotted this thing off the coast, and they thought it was the Japanese, so they sent all their spotlights on, and they started shelling all this ammunition of it and couldn't bring it down. Then they tried to say it was a weather balloon. You mean to tell me you shell out 1,400 ammunitions at another weather balloon, you couldn't bring it down? Are you kidding me? And then I believe a couple of people lost their lives too in that. But it's a weather balloon. And then you had the 1945 Trinity crash, and for those of you who don't know about that, that's a case that happened in New Mexico, and I'm pretty sure I've showed you guys the book. It's by Jacques Vallée and Paola Harris, and this crash was witnessed by two young kids. I think one was Remy and the other one was Jose, and one of the guys is still alive. The other guy passed away, but it's a really good book. And then after that, you had the famous, that everybody knows worldwide, the famous 1947 Roswell crash, where they came out and announced that Army Air Force had captured a flying saucer. But then the very next day, they turned around and retracted their story and said it was a weather balloon. And it's always a weather balloon. It's always a weather balloon. Just like NASA always says, it's always an ice crystal. The object you see flying out there in space and moving like that, it's an ice crystal. When does ice crystals stop in mid-space or whatever? Stop and go back the other way. I mean, if that's not it just blows my mind. Oh, and then after 1947, the Roswell crash, you had the Aztec, New Mexico crash, which I believe happened in 1948. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it happened in 1948. Where this object came down, and I think these oil workers end up discovering it, and the military came out there, and supposedly one of the guys got to take a look inside. He went and got this like long pole off his truck, and somehow there was a glass or opening on the craft where he was stuck the pole in. He was just moving it around, and it ended up opening part of the ship or whatever, and it was like, when they looked inside, it was like 12 beings, not the typical grays, but kind of. And there was at least 12 or 13 of these beings inside this craft. So yeah. So we know this cover up has been going for a long, long time. And who's ever running this cover up, whatever elite group faction is running this cover up, they have their hands in NASA. They have their hands in the UAP task force. So yeah, I guess it makes only sense that NASA follow along. But it's really, really disappointing that a company that's supposed to be, I mean, you want to go into space and discover life, but then you're going to turn around and pretend like nothing's here. You're pretty much just wasting our tax dollars. NASA serves no purpose. If you're going to go into space, discover life, then just feed us such a bunch of BS that nothing's out there. It's just a complete and utter joke. Absolute joke. So, I don't know. I guess it's my little short rant for tonight, why I still can rant and talk about UFOs and UAPs and the phenomenon and the alien abductions. Because if that Representative LaHood, who was at the hearing, gets his way, he's not going to want anybody like me or you or Dave or Roderick Martin over at Why the Big Secret, or Richard Dole and Linda Moon Howe or James Fox or anybody talking about this subject. He wants people to be prosecuted for talking about UFOs. And I'm thinking to myself, what are you going to prosecute them for? You can't even get our government and military to admit that something or some beings are coming here, but you're going to prosecute somebody for something? It just, I don't know. I just don't know. It's oh, it just bothers me to no end. NASA bothers me to just cover up these lies. Just bother me to no end. I don't know. And you know they're never gonna admit to the truth. They just can't, because then once you start a lie like that, you just have to keep the lie going. Cause there's gonna be so many questions. You turn like, oh yeah, we were covering up. We did lie about the Roswell crash. And what else? Did you lie about all the other crashes that happened? Then they're going to get into the question of alien abductions. They definitely are going to want to talk on that subject whatsoever. Especially if they're complicit in letting these beings take and abduct people and do whatever they want to them, which is supposed to be what Eisenhower agreed to. So, I don't know. Those are my thoughts. Anyway, I guess that's it. That's all I got for tonight. I think in a couple of days I might talk about the late Sergeant Carl Wolf. Some of you guys probably know who he is. He was at that press hearing or conference that I believe Steve Bassett, I think it was maybe Steve Bassett or Greer had put together a couple of years ago in Washington. And he talked about how when he worked for the Air Force, I believe in the 60s, and he was shared the information about bases and structures being out on the backside of the moon. And you know what? I'm always looking up at the moon, and I'm like, if the moon just rotates, just turn around. Just let us see your backside, because I have a telescope. I mean, if you have a telescope, we can probably see something. We can see these structures that he said are on the back of the moon. Right there is something we look at every night. And our moon just doesn't rotate for us to see it. I mean, some people think the moon is man-made. I don't know, but whoever put those structures on the moon, they knew what they were doing. They put them on the backside to keep them out of sight from us. So, maybe that was the whole point, because they knew our moon didn't rotate. Obviously, whatever these ETs or beings are doing here, they don't want to have open contact with us. They want to hide in the shadows and work in the shadows and remain secret. I don't know. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Alright, I'm out. And so I'm going to end it on this note. As Richard Dole would say, don't let the bastards get you down. And as Spock would say, live long and prosper, my people. Live long and prosper. Bye.